SDMetal.com. We are here for the Decibel Magazine tour in Santa Ana. It's really crowded here, but we finally got him. We've got Ross from IMMOLATION. How you doing, man?
Good. Straight off the stage, sweaty.
Yeah, seriously. What's the first thing you think about when you get off stage? I mean, you've been doing this for such a long time.
First thing I think
What's
about?
the first thing you think about when you get off stage?
Get me a towel and a water. That's the first thing I think of. And somewhere to sit.
You're kind of all about physical recovery.
Yeah.
Do you have that? I mean, because you've been doing this for so long, do you ever still sit down and contemplate, oh, here's what I could have done to improve? Or is the response from the crowd so overwhelming you think, geez, I could have just like hopped on one foot the entire time and they would have loved it?
It's honestly a blur. You don't even really think. You're an autopilot. You just go for it. If the crowd is on like it was tonight, it makes it easier. If the crowd's a little reserved, it's a little harder because then you feel like you have to push harder to get that response. But when it's like this, it's easy. It's just it's autopilot, And at this point in the game, we don't really think. I mean, we hope we go up there and don't screw up because we always screw up here and there. But that's it. Hope for the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a great opportunity to be promoting your newest album, Kingdom of Conspiracy.
Yeah.
Literally just came out in the past week, right? In Europe. Did it come out? What is it? It's May 16th. So it really only came out a couple days ago.
Came out like 2 days ago, yeah.
Jeez. How has the response been so far?
Really good, really good. The response live is like kind of what we're judging by. So when we play the new songs live, we open up with the title track, which has been out for a while now, and kids respond to that really well. They're really into that. We play 2 songs we flip-flop that we haven't debuted yet. Well, now they have the album, so they probably know it. And then we play another song that's the last track. So we try to mix it up. We play 3 new songs. We play the title track of Majesty and a couple old songs.
So to kind of elaborate on that, what's the difference between when someone, I mean, your fans really are digging the new stuff from the feedback I've seen as well, but what's the difference between the fan reaction you get when there's a new song versus the fan reactions you get when they're playing something like Follow You Not a Father?
Yeah, well, it's kind of hard to compare because when you play something like Follow You Not a Father or some of the earlier stuff, a lot of people, that has a special place in their heart because, when you grow up, you associate certain times in your life with the certain albums that you bought at that time. So certain people, I understand, that has a special click within them, a certain memory, a time in their life. So yeah, I understand why those songs kind of mean a little bit more. But honestly, the response to the newer songs has been just as fanatical. It's been really good. So I can't complain, which is kind of unusual. Sometimes you play new shit and it's like playing to like a painting. The kids are like,
exactly. They kind of don't know what to do with themselves.
Right, but it hasn't really been like that. They've been really receptive. And I think the fact that a lot of these shows have been either capacity or sold out, when you have that many people in a room, it's easier for them to kind of let go of their inhibitions and enjoy. Because a lot of kids don't want to go crazy because, they're like, I'm the only guy going off, but when there's so many people there, they just kind of go with it. And that's what I like to see. Just, lose yourself for a while. That's what music's for,
Absolutely. And in addition to the huge promotion you're getting, touring with Cannibal Corpse and touring with Decibel Magazine, you guys had a pre-listening party down in LA where you got, and Alexi Leho was there too. How was that experience?
Unfortunately, we weren't there, but we heard about it. I mean, we had just started the tour, so we were in Texas, I think, when that happened.
Okay.
But we heard it was, they had 160 something people, and they said it was really great. The label people were there, and they said it was awesome. So that's cool to be, to even have a listening party for one of our CDs.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know how to react to that. I'm like, cool, awesome.
Like fucking Alexi Leho too. I mean, that's a big
listen on, Lexi from Children of Bottom was great, so it's awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Now, I promised myself I wouldn't spend this entire interview fangirling over Majesty and Decay, but I've got to say, if any of you death metal heads have not checked out this album, it's incredible. And it came out 3 years ago, and when I was listening to Kingdom of Conspiracy, it was almost like you have this expectation of Majesty and Decay, which, I mean, from cover to content, it's really clean, really polished, but still kind of maintains that old school brutality. And Kingdom of Conspiracy to me was kind of like, you consider it like a follow-up. and it was so consistent in sound, it almost sounded like, what if death metal like made a concept album? Was this kind of, were you trying to stay consistent with Majesty and Decay? Did like everything work so well for that album that you decided to kind of transition over? I mean, they're not copycats, that's for sure.
They're very different albums, whereas Majesty is very dark and brooding. The new album's just very concise and sinister. It's just like boom, boom, boom. Majesty had a lot more open parts, a lot of like longer parts that kind of like created a different type of atmosphere, you know, more brooding, I think. Whereas the new one is just, you know, it's just like a steamroll from start to finish, you know. And when we start each process for each new record, we really don't go in with any expectations. We never think, okay, we got to try to do what we did. Never. I mean, I guess that's just where we were going, because in between we had the Providence EP, and I think Providence combines, I think, what we have in the new one and Majesty, and I think it was just natural for us to go in that next direction. But again, it's hit or miss. I mean, we don't know. It's like each new record's a clean slate for us. We don't have any expectations. We don't put any expectations on ourselves other than we just kind of take note of the things we knew we need to improve on from the last release, and that's all we do.
Well, that's really interesting that you mentioned it's a clean slate, because for me, what makes Immolation such a great band is your consistency, that you're going to pick up an Immolation record and you know exactly the kind of techniques that you're going to use, but you never get really bored by it. So I find it interesting that you're able to maintain these techniques, yet it's a clean slate every time.
Yeah, I you know, Bob writes all the music, so I think what helps is that, you know, this is a fun thing for us. We don't really make a living off it. So we go home, we go back to our jobs. When we're done with the touring cycle for each release, we take a break. We put our instruments down and we don't touch them for 6 months, 8 months. We don't wait, literally, we don't touch them. And then we're like, okay, let's start thinking about some new stuff. And then Bob and I start, you know, brainstorming and talking about stuff. And I start pushing him, come on, man, let's see what you got, you know. And he starts churning out the riffs, and then we pick up the instruments, and then it's fresh. So I think that period of hiatus where we don't touch our stuff and we just kind of clear our heads of this and we get back into our daily routines and our jobs, and you know, you get into that groove again, and then you're like, man, I can't wait to get back into the music again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think each time we jump in, it's fresh and it's new, and it's not, we're never jaded over it, you know. And I think that helps too. That's the only thing I could really say that might attribute to that, you know. That's the only thing I can think of, you know.
And I mean, there are a couple people also I really want to credit for really making this album amazing. For one is that cover art by Paul Olofsson. And I noticed something that's really starting to happen now is you're kind of starting to have this sort of icon in your cover art. So you had that big king standing on the throne, and then you've got this big central character. Do you think that's a kind of maybe a kind of hidden motif for the band, or is there something that's kind of more prominent, like instead of making a scene, making a figure more prominent?
I never thought of it that way. I mean, it's funny because people always like bring these things up. I'm like, wow, I never noticed that. It wasn't intentional. I mean, just that the concept for this one was really difficult for us to kind of get together, you know, because we wanted to kind of bring out so much in the cover and stay true to what was going on lyrically in the album. And it was definitely a hard one for Parr to nail because we were kind of all over the place. We had a concept and it just kept changing throughout the process, and we kept adding things and changing things, and this ain't right, it's not really. So when we finally got what you see, it was kind of like a culmination of all those changes and kind of what we were looking for, and I think he kind of nailed it, you know. It's definitely a different piece for us, but again, not intentional with the central figure at all, just that's kind of where we were going.
That's the real beauty of this band, is just the kind of flow that you guys just let everything really relax and at ease.
Totally. I mean, and it's good that we got people like Parr to work with, because he's very good at kind of going with that flow and dealing with our hiccups, you know what I'm saying? And he really translates the ideas and brings them to life. So that's important, I think, with any piece of art, you know. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And two, you've got Paul Orofino back on here. He's been with you guys since, I think, Feeling for Gods was the first time.
Yeah, you're right.
The first time he came on. A lot of bands, at least what I'm starting to notice, a trend in is bands trying to take on self-production. How come you guys decide to have a crew who kind of like stands alongside you, and you guys kind of seem to take an offhand approach to the production? Why is it?
Because we don't know what the hell we're doing. we're not studio. We're not tech guys. We're not big studio guys. I mean, Bob's learned a lot with his Ableton Live, and which we do all the pre-production. And it sounds good for pre-production, but we would never be able. We don't know. We're not that knowledgeable about that. So, you know, you always have a guy who knows his job do the job. He'll do the correct job. So that's why we have Parr. That's why we have Paul. And now we have Zach Owen, who did Majesty and Providence. And Zach really knows how to bring out those sounds, you know. And Paul knows how to record those sounds and lay down that foundation. And Zach takes that and just polishes up and makes it come to life. So we have the team now. That's what we've been searching for the last 25 years. So we got the dream team now. So
there you go. I'm glad that can stay consistent for you. Now, with the rise of so many kids trying to aspire to bands, what advice would you give to young people who are trying to start a death metal band, something to make them stand out, get them going?
Do it for the right reasons. Don't do it for money or for any kind of, if you have any kind of whatever quest for fame. Never do it for that. I mean, be realistic. Always have a plan B, because this isn't a lucrative business. And like I said, get into it because you're passionate about it. Don't get into it for any other reason other than that. If it takes you somewhere, then consider it a plus, a benefit. You know, we never got into this when we started. Our aspirations were to just record a couple of our songs and to play the local club to our friends. It wasn't. We never dreamed of putting out a record. It was kind of a joke to us. You know, when we got approached by Roadrunner, they sent us a letter, and we were like, "Huh, Roadrunner wrote to us? They wouldn't know what to do with a band like this." We just kind of tossed the letter away, and we never dealt with it again. Then they wrote us again, like 6 months later, after the second demo came out. They were like, "Hey guys, so this isn't really the way to go about getting signed, you know?" So we were like, "Wait, maybe these guys are serious." And then we got into it. I mean, we were very green. We didn't know how vast this underground. See, when we started, you got to remember, you guys are a lot younger than us. When we started, it was pre-internet. There was no internet. You had to write letters to bands. You had to record your own cassette demo tapes and send them out in the mail. So we used to write to everybody, from Morbid Angel to Autopsy to Nihilist, who later became Entombed. I mean, we were pen pals. You were pen pals. You had to actually work to get your music, you know. And every fanzine was a black and white homemade fanzine, which there's still a lot of those today. But I mean, that was the essence of the underground back then, you know. And it was a very tight-knit scene of people who were really on the outside. You know, we were all on the outside. We were never on the inside. You know, we were always that fringe group that nobody ever got us. You know what I'm saying? But we did it anyway because we loved to do it, and it was, you know, to realize you have people all over the world who are like-minded. It was mind-blowing for us. But once we signed and once we actually got on the road and toured, and we were meeting people all over the world, it was like kind of overwhelming. So we never expected that, and we never expected to be here 25 years later. That's for sure. So
we should consider it a huge accomplishment. Now,
I do.
My last question for you is, I would like to know what song you think you don't play enough live that you would just love to one day just pull out and surprise everybody, because you haven't played this in years or at all.
Wow. There's a lot of shit off the first record we haven't played since that tour. You know, like After My Prayers and or stuff like that. Or, but
that'd be really cool if you guys did a tour with that first album, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I would dig that.
You know, a lot of we've had offers to do festival things in Europe to play only the first album, but we're not about that. We're not stuck on the early stuff. I mean, I think all of our stuff is relevant and is just as strong. And I think the newer stuff is actually stronger than the earlier stuff. So I don't want to be one of the bands that relies on the earlier merits to kind of keep sustaining our momentum. I want to keep relying on the newer material to kind of push us forward, you know. So, as you know, we always incorporate the old shit into the set. We throw it in possession. Tonight we had a half-hour set, so tonight's the exception. We usually always incorporate a lot of older shit into the set, because you know, I notice there's always if you ask 9 different people what's their favorite Immolation album, they're gonna name 9 different albums. You know, that's the way it is with us. You always got to kind of keep that in mind. You know what I'm saying? So we always like the newer stuff because it's fresh and it's cooler to play, because we haven't been playing it for 25 years.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
There you go.
So, but we're, you know, we can't just go on our instincts, because we know the fans are gonna be like, "Oh, why didn't you play this?" So we know we're never gonna make everybody happy. That's just a fact. So we just kind of go with it, you know.
Yeah, there's definitely a tendency for people to kind of, I guess, relish themselves in the classics, because it becomes more valuable somehow when they get older. But I'm telling you that stuff on Majesty and Decay is just
cool. I'm glad you like it. I mean, you know, like you, that's your favorite. I mean, other people say, "Oh, Failures," and other guys say, "I don't like Failures. I like this album. I like the Dawn of Possession only." You know, so it's weird like that. But you know, that's how it is with the kids. kids.
Yeah, kids.
Kids. Well, I'm 43, so everybody's younger than me. Kids. I'm like the jaded old guy. You fucking kids today.
Well, you sure are looking good, and we sure hope that you have a great rest of your tour. Thank you for joining us here at SDMetal.
I'm glad you guys made it, man. Thank you.
Me too. Stay metal.